It appears the Royals are willing to trade for their middle of the order bat and not sign one. We'll tell you what we think next on Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. That's at JOHNYJ_15. Or you can find us on wherever you get your podcast. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast. We're on Odyssey and YouTube. Just be sure to hit that follow button and subscribe. If you're a first-time listener and you want to know a little bit more about me and this show, I am based here in Kansas City. I work at Sports Radio 810 WHB, doing some hosting, co-hosting, and a little bit of producing as well. But when it comes to this podcast, when you click on this link, you know that you're going to be getting 30 straight minutes of Royals baseball. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. Well, I am doing a podcast a little bit earlier than I anticipated. If you would have watched our Sunday episode, you would have known that in dealing with some personal family stuff, wasn't sure how many episodes I was going to be getting in this week. Now I do have a complete timeline of what I'll be able to give you guys. We'll have episodes today, Wednesday, and Thursday. Not going to have one on Friday, but then going into next week, we'll be back to a usual schedule. So for those wondering about a Mailbag Friday, not to worry. If you send me a question, I'll probably still put out a tweet, and I'll just answer them directly on Twitter or X. Or if you want to send them in on YouTube, that's totally fine as well. I'll get you your guys' answers there. So no episode to make up for on Monday, not doing one on Friday. And as you know, if you've been listening the last couple of episodes, beginning on December 15th, we'll be dropping down to 3 episodes a week. We do this every single season because us baseball podcasters need a little bit of a break when it comes to the off season. It'll be in a down period, probably lots of quiet moves being made. A lot of the big moves will be made maybe as early as next week because of the winter meetings. We'll be diving into that in our third segment today. But yes, 3 episodes a week beginning December 15th, just so you guys won't be thrown off when you're not seeing an episode every single day like we do in season. But I believe toward the end of January, we pick things back up to 5 episodes a week right before pitchers and catchers report. So a lot more news coming your way at the beginning of 2025. Well, it's no surprise that as soon as I put out a podcast about not panicking when it comes to the Royals being quiet after making that Jonathan India trade, there's an article that goes out that has the Royals in it and a little bit of an update as to what they're going to be looking for going into next week. And it goes completely against what I said in our Thanksgiving episode, I believe it was. One of our segments was, well, what should they go for next, right? And I thought, well, you might as well go take care of the rotation because now you do have a hole in that part of your team, that unit. You need to add an extra starter. But in this article that was posted yesterday, I believe it was a combination of Ken Rosenthal, Katie Wu, and Will Salmon was the one that posted it. It goes over Clay Holmes being at least slated as a starter potentially for some of the teams that are interested in him, Luis Roberts' value in the trade market. And the third bullet point is what's next for the Royals. So obviously I read that article, and it did surprise me a little bit because in this article, along with talking about the rotation, we'll get into that in the second segment, about wanting more so of a swing guy, a depth piece than an actual number 4, number 5 starter. Goes against what we said, of course, in one of our segments, but talks about the middle of the order bat and the focus being on that going into next week. Now, I thought after trading away Brady Singer, a big trade piece, probably the biggest trade piece the Royals had, that they would be looking through free agency to bring in their middle of the order bat. It's not to rule it out and say it's impossible, but in this article, it is directly stated that the Royals would prefer to trade for their middle of the order bat then sign one. This could also be just exploring every outlet, every option. There's also a chance that with this type of smoke, right? You hear us say all the time, where there's smoke, there's fire. The Royals might have somebody circled right now. And let's be honest, might have had them circled as soon as the season ended. And when you hear, well, we really want to trade for this piece, we want to trade for this spot, they're likely trying to see how they can make that trade work. This could be Taylor Ward. I know we got a lot of questions about Cody Bellinger. I was against it about 2 weeks ago just because I didn't think it'd be possible after the Jonathan India trade. Now I'm not ruling it out at all because Cody Bellinger is an outfielder. Cody Bellinger is a middle of the order bat, and he's on a team that's willing to trade him. And they may be willing to eat a chunk of his salary to get it done. So I'm going to bring that back into play. Is it Alec Boehm? He kind of checks off a lot of those boxes, but he also plays third base. I don't think you want to worry about moving so many guys out of position, but if the price is right for Alec Boehm, I'm not going to rule it out. But in this article, going to the quotes made by JJ Picollo in the past, what all three of those writers are saying, I think it should bring some excitement that the Royals in almost every news outlet, it feels like every single week, whether it be The Athletic, The New York Times, ESPN, MLB.com, they're referenced with a lot of the teams that are active. It's not to say they're going after the same guys, because they're not. But you have a lot of contending teams out there that haven't said anything, that have not been mentioned in any article. And the Royals, it feels like every few weeks or so, they're brought up. I mean, I chuckle a little bit in thinking about how many times in the last 5 years did you hear or read a big piece from The Athletic where one of the bullet points is what's next for the Royals, right? It's because they're one of the teams making moves. And we go back to that Jonathan India deal. Smoke equals fire. They like Jonathan India. He was a leadoff bat. He was a high OBP guy. They get it done. But the question becomes now, after you traded Brady Singer, who's the next most valuable piece? And I'll go one step further. Is it a big league piece, or are you having to pry from your minor league system? And that's something I believe the Royals aren't as willing to do, certainly not with a handful of guys, but they'll need to make their choice on some of those prospects in the coming weeks, in the coming months, because not all 30 of them are going to be big league caliber players. You can love minor league numbers all you want, but the last time I truly cared about minor league numbers, I got burned by them. I got absolutely scorched with the numbers that Jackson Kowar gave everybody when he was in AA and AAA, got called up, couldn't put it together. Not that it'll never translate, because there are guys that had great minor league numbers. They become great big league ball players. I just don't put as much stock as I used to. There have been guys that had mediocre minor league numbers and were much better once they got to the big league level. It's weird. You can't really predict it. But to me, I think, JJ Picollo, Scott Sharp, Brian Bridges, they're evaluating all those options. And I'm sure when you hear the Royals would prefer to trade than to sign somebody, that kind of signals to me they already have somebody they are eyeballing right now. They maybe have been in discussions with somebody. It's just not public yet. But lucky for us, the winter meetings are next week, so we might get more clarity on that as to who the Royals may be looking at. But when you're going after a trade piece for the middle of the order, and here's another exciting part about it. I know I'm jumping all over the place here, but the Royals would not be trading for a middle of the order bat if it wasn't a big impact guy. I don't think they would be willing to trade more resources away for a guy that may or may not be the answer for the middle of the order. So if they get something done, I'd imagine it's going to be a difference maker in the middle of the order. The other part of that is if you're getting a difference maker, you're giving up a lot, right? And this strategy, this philosophy, likely to save more money unless you are going after somebody like Cody Bellinger. Therefore, you have to significantly increase your payroll to get him. But it's a different path because maybe you're trading for somebody that's got multiple years of control and you're not having to pay him, 14, 15, 16 million a year. You're maybe ruling out some of the bigger name free agents. You don't feel like it's a fit for Anthony Santander or Jock Peterson. And I really don't hate it. If you can get something done with the resources you have, I would like to think that the guy you're acquiring is more than just a 1-year rental guy or a 2-year guy. Maybe it's a 3-year guy, a multiple-year guy. It's somebody you can build around the young core with. And, the Royals are notorious, in my opinion, for at times making you think they're going one way and they were targeting somebody else the entire time, right? I think we've done enough podcasts now where we think some guy is a perfect fit. I know that it makes all the sense in the world. And you would think, oh, maybe the Royals have interest. And then the whole time they were looking at somebody else and you're just caught off guard. It's like catching a left hook when you're not looking and the Royals break some news that they're acquiring this guy. That wasn't the case for Jonathan India because we knew they were interested. Now this becomes a little bit more intriguing to me because I have no idea which way they would be going. Are they looking for an outfielder? Are they looking for a DH? Are they looking for an infielder? What options are they going to? And I would like to lean toward outfielder because they've expressed that a corner outfield bat, a middle of the order bat makes sense. And there are guys out there they can trade for, but with the resources they have, can they get it done? And as I'm going to circle back to the beginning part of this segment, just because they would prefer to trade for a bat doesn't mean they're going to get it done. They may try to go after somebody. Let's say for this hypothetical, it's Taylor Ward or it's Cody Bellinger. And maybe it just doesn't match up. Maybe the prices don't match. Okay, now we will pivot to free agency and we could find a better fit there. But I think with them preferring a trade, you don't really say that unless you feel confident that could happen or you would be willing to match some sort of price that team is setting. Or maybe you're having to wait it out a little bit longer because that team wants to field a ton of offers. But it at least piqued my interest that the Royals once again would be looking to fill another spot in their lineup through trade and not through free agency. Okay, we're going to take our first break at the show. When we come back, we'll talk about the other part to this article, which was about the rotation, when the Royals want to fill it out, and who they would be willing to go after to fill out that rotation. We'll dive into that next on Locked On Royals. You are tuning to Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. Want to give a shout out to our first sponsor today in FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. For my pick, a great Thursday night matchup we got coming up with the Lions and the Packers. Don't need to overthink this one. I feel like riding with the Lions is the popular pick, so I'll take Detroit to cover the spread on Thursday Night Football. Continuing on with this article, it was great that not only did we get a little bit of clarity on what the Royals may be looking for offensively, but it answered some of our questions about what the Royals will be looking to do to replace Brady Singer's spot. And this did catch me off guard. I already teased it a little bit in the first 10 minutes of the show, but it's not the answer I was thinking it was going to be. I was taken a little bit back that for right now, the Royals are going to wait to address the rotation. And when they do address it, it appears free agency will be the route. But it's not going to be the guys we were talking about. At least that's not what I'm getting from this. Nick Pivetta, it doesn't match up with what the Royals said they're going to be looking for. Michael Lorenzen, I don't think it really matches up with what the Royals are saying. Even somebody like Max Scherzer, I'm not confident. Again, when it comes to the rotation, I think I'm going to be a little bit hesitant to believe everything that is said because I just go back about a month ago. J.J. Picollo said Brady Singer was a lock for the rotation. A few weeks later, he's traded. And that's just how the offseason goes. You're not going to show everything that you have. You're not going to show your hand to every team out there in baseball. Hey, we're looking to trade this guy. We're looking to trade this guy. We're thinking about signing this guy We believe in this guy. A lot of it is smokescreen, in my opinion, because what you can do by saying we're not looking to fill out the rotation through free agency, we're waiting to address it. If we are going to sign somebody, it'll be a swing man, a number 6 starter, and not a true number 4, number 5. It's putting value in the guys that would be your plug-in number 4, number 5. So we've heard the rumors that Alec Marsh and Chris Bubic are players that have been discussed before. Teams have interest in those guys. They also have interest in Michael Garcia. We'll likely talk about that a little bit more in tomorrow's episode. But you put more stock into that if your answer is to fill out the rotation with another free agent pitcher, right? If you went out there and expressed to all the other teams, all the other GMs, we traded Brady Singer, therefore now we're looking at Nick Pivetta. Well, targeting yourself and putting your name out there isn't always the worst thing if you feel like you are the team that can absolutely get it done with no competition, but that's not really how the Royals operate. At times, it's going to get out there whether you're interested in that guy or not, the same way it happened with Jonathan India. There's just too many people out there in the league that know what's going on and are able to relay it to the reporters. But with the way this article has laid it out, the Royals would then be confident in both Alec Marsh and Chris Bubic taking the number 4 and number 5 spots in the rotation, interchangeable for where they would be. Maybe Bubic is the 4, maybe he's the 5. But that is, as I've said before on the podcast, a little bit risky because neither of those guys have given the production that Brady Singer has. And maybe having that swing man, right? If the Royals go out there and get a 6 starter, who knows? Maybe that is Michael Lorenzen. Maybe Lorenzen's that hybrid where he can start some games. He can be out of the bullpen. Daniel Lynch can do the same if you feel like he can keep that positive trend. But that does mean to me, that gives me more confidence, more belief that if what they are saying is true, it's going to work out that it's Chris Bubic and Alec Marsh. And I do think Chris Bubic can make that transition. I still don't know how long it would take him to build up his arm in the offseason, and if that's good enough to build up his arm in the offseason and then give him a spot in the rotation. I think the upside's there. I think the ceiling's there. We've discussed that before on the podcast. Alec Marsh, I've always believed that he's better suited to be a bullpen guy. But if you already have Daniel Lynch as your long relief guy and Kyle Wright as somebody else that is hopefully going to be able to lengthen out your bullpen, maybe Alec Marsh is better fit for the rotation than Daniel Lynch would be, and then Kyle Wright would be. You never know. Competition's going to happen in spring training. But with those comments being made in the article about the Royals waiting to address it, they certainly want to get their offense figured out, which is completely against what I said, which was why not, handle the rotation now. There's a lot of bats out there that could be plugged into the middle of the lineup. I don't think that you needed to rush with it. But as for the rotation, I think some of those cheaper guys were going to start flying off the market pretty quickly. It's the complete opposite. You look at the number 4 and number 5 spot for Kansas City. I thought either Marsh or Bubic would be a guy to take one of those spots, and then you just give a 1-year deal to somebody to give you the production that Brady Singer gave you. But if you feel confident that either Chris Bubic or Alec Marsh can give you anywhere from 160 to 180 innings and be a slightly above league average arm, there's no need to go out there and spend a ton of money on the rotation. And when you think about it, the starting pitching market has already gotten off to a player-friendly way of life, basically. Yusei Kikuchi gets a pretty expensive deal. Frankie Montas gets a pretty expensive deal for the Mets. So if that's what those guys are going for, we know what the top arms out there are going to be going for. So what's the cheap deals going to look like? What's a Michael Lorenzen deal going to look like? What if it's 1 year, $12 million? I mean, if the market really starts heating up, then maybe it's fine to wait till it cools off. Maybe wait till those prices come down to 6 to 8 million a year. Then you could strike and get yourself a swingman. So I do understand that side of it, right? There's never really a need unless you have to fill a top spot in the rotation like they did last year. They had to jump on Seth Lugo. They had to jump on Michael Wacha. If you're looking at your number 4, number 5 starter, I will go against what I said last week. You can wait for the price to drop. There are going to be guys available in January and February to get on a 1-year deal. The guys that you would love to give a 1-year deal less than 10 million in December, probably still going to be there come January. Unless some team that's going to be bad this year just needs to fill out the rotation, they get to you before you get to them. I could see them falling off the list, but why not just wait it out a little bit? See if you can figure out your lineup, get your whole offense squared away, solidified. Then you say, is it Chris Bubich or Alec Marsh? And you pick either one of them. And then it comes down to the number 5 spot. Do you want to run it back with Alec Marsh, or do you want to give Chris Bubich the shot, or do you want to bring in a swingman just to give some competition in spring training? So that puts you in a really nice spot. But this whole article, I think, highlighted what the Royals will be looking to do going in the next week, which is the winter meetings, when a lot of stuff is going to be picking up. We may even know where Juan Soto is going to be playing baseball in the next week or so. So without further ado, let's take our final break and we'll talk about the winter meetings. We're going to know a lot more about a lot of teams, not just the Royals. And one more thing, we now know where you can watch the Royals in 2025. That'll be coming up next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. Want to give a shout out to our final sponsor today in Gametime. Now, the college football season, at least the regular season, is over, but college basketball is in full swing. Still a few weeks left in the regular season for the NFL. NBA, of course, is in the middle of their action, their concerts, indoors, of course, here if you're in Kansas City. Too cold now to be going to any outdoor venues. But if you're thinking about attending any of those things, do so over at Gametime. It's my favorite app to use when buying tickets. I got my notifications on, so when a new band is coming in town, when you have a team that you like to watch is coming into town, they will notify you. They'll let you know what the prices are. You can see when they're rising, when they're dropping. It's just super fun, even just to scan. If you don't think you're going to be making it, but you want to be persuaded, Gametime is such a fun app to use when you're thinking about buying those tickets. So download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off on your first purchase. Those terms apply. So again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It is game time. Now, 2 things to go over here to close out our Tuesday episode. And if you missed it, the first part of our show, we'll have an episode today, tomorrow, and Thursday, off Friday. But for Mailbag Friday, I'll just answer your guys' questions directly on Twitter, or I'll be answering them on YouTube. But for this episode, a little bit of stuff to cover going in the next week, a big week, which will be back to normal for us. The winter meetings. It is going to cover a lot. There are going to be a lot of blockbuster moves, in my opinion. I would put money down now that Juan Soto will have more traction come the winter meetings. There will be some fun trades that happen. And the winter meetings is by far and away the best part of the Major League Baseball offseason. Next to spring training, because it technically counts as still being in the offseason, the winter meetings is where it's at. And the winter meetings is where the Royals did a lot of their damage last year. When they were able to go out there and sign Seth Lugo or Michael Wacha. It was around that time period. I can't remember if it was exactly during the winter meetings. It was close to it. You know, by early December that teams are going to start making moves. And it's great because you get these little appetizer deals. Like we got Frankie Montas yesterday going to the Mets. Aroldis Chapman signed with the Boston Red Sox this morning. And it just leads you up into the winter meetings when some of these big name guys and even the 1B guys start signing with teams because the GMs are able to meet. In the Royals case, if they're still looking to trade for a middle of the order bat, this is where it gets done. This is when you have a perfect opportunity to be in contact with multiple GMs, be sitting down with guys, going over certain players, and striking some deals. You may even be getting some cheap 1-year deals, right? Some bullpen guys, some bullpen depth there, some rotational depth, bench guys. This is when everything starts to speed up for about a week, and then it goes radio silent. Then it gets completely quiet. And that's why with our episodes, 5 episodes carries all the way until the winter meetings. And then when the winter meetings are done, that's when we switch it back over to 3, because this is where everything heats up. The hot stove is red hot. and then it gets quiet. Everything cools off, and you don't hear much until toward the end of January, which, not really coincidentally, we start picking back up to 5 episodes a week. But this should tell us a lot about the Royals. This should tell us a lot about many teams in Major League Baseball. And, it's one thing for a few months, which we've been able to do now for October, November, and early December, of, well, this team is interested in a certain player. This team wants to make something happen. This team is going to be aggressive. It's all rumors, and we call it smoke. And I know that smoke can equal fire, but that's all hearsay. That's all, what could happen, who could be interested. The winter meetings to me is when you show if what you said is actually true. If the Royals are going to make a trade for the middle of the order bat, it feels like next week can be the time to do it. That way you can kick your feet up, relax for Christmas and Christmas Eve, and for New Year's and New Year's Day, and then you can revisit that rotation in January. Like, this is where you can get it done so you can relax during the holidays. If you can strike a deal in the middle of next week and fill out your lineup, I think you'll feel pretty good on Christmas. I think you'll feel pretty good going into the new year. And along with trying to fill out the lineup, you get to see how serious the Tigers are. You get to see how serious the Twins and Guardians are. Your competition in the American League. Are the Yankees going to re-sign Juan Soto? And if they don't, who are they pivoting to? I mean, I know the Royals now have to look at the Yankees as the team to beat in the American League. They won the American League. So you got to see how serious and how real they are about bringing back Juan Soto. If they don't, are they pivoting to a much cheaper option? Probably not. We know they're going to spend a lot of money to bring in talent. But you want to be the team that gets stuff done, addresses your issues, and wait and see what other teams are trying to do to address their issues. If they're serious, if they were just trying to make their fan base happy by throwing their hat in the ring on a bunch of players. I know a couple of Boston fans that get furious every single offseason. The Red Sox are the team that constantly throw their name out there. They're interested in Juan Soto. They're interested in Yamamoto. They're interested in Roki Sasaki. They're interested in this guy, and the deals don't happen. Because sometimes I think GMs out there feel like, hey, if we cast a wide net and we are constantly linked, it means that our fans think we're being aggressive. Well, next week is when you can actually show that you are aggressive. Because anybody out there, I could be a GM for a team and place 100 different calls on 100 different players, and it would be reported out there that my team is interested in this guy, no matter what the price is. And I think that there would be a large group of people that would say, wow, he's an aggressive GM. He's really trying to make it happen. But if I didn't sign any of them, it wouldn't make any sense. It wouldn't back up anything I said, or it wouldn't mean much to the fan base, to the club. And I think there are some GMs out there that love to do that. Not that they aren't trying to sign any of those guys, but when they're trying to be aggressive, it's like calling a bunch of places and just putting your name out there. Any team can do that. It's a matter of, do you have the payroll? Are you in a place to win? And is that player interested in you? And the winter meetings are going to show us a lot. A lot of teams are either going to be exposed for lying about their interested players, and a lot of teams are going to be backed up with they followed through on what they were going to say, or they followed through on their interest in certain guys out there. So should be a lot of fun at the winter meetings next week. And as for the other piece of news here, the Royals are going to be staying with Diamond Sports Group as their broadcaster on a renegotiated short-term deal. Like the other 6 MLB teams with Diamond, the Royals' rights are to be available for 2028 for a potential national package. So I've already gotten questions about what this is going to be looking like. Bally's is now rebranded to FanDuel. So that's what you're going to have to look for. The FanDuel Sports Network is, I believe, the official name of it. So you can watch the Royals on the FanDuel Sports Network. I think when it comes to the app, if you weren't watching through cable, you just update it. Like, I think there's an option of update the app. It should change Bally to FanDuel Sports Network, and you'll have it there. Cable won't change, right? If you watched on Bally, it's going to be the exact same thing. And then there's going to be an additional add-on package. I'm trying to piece together all my notes here. There is an Amazon add-on. So if you have Amazon Prime, you watch shows on that, there will be a package where you can pay a little bit more. I don't know the actual price just yet. Hopefully that comes out, or maybe I missed it somewhere, but you will be able to pay a little bit extra on Amazon Prime to get the full 162 games for the Royals. And you could watch it on Amazon Prime. So it's either the FanDuel Sports Network or whatever it's going to be called, or Diamond Sports Group, just rebranded from Bally. So it's no big change there in terms of how you're going to watch it. It's just a different name. It's a different look. So if you watched on the app, you update the app, you watch it there. If you watched on cable, it's going to be the same thing, just no longer Bally's, going to have a different name. And if you don't want to do either of those options, you want to watch on Amazon Prime, I'm certainly going to see what the price is there, because I think Amazon Prime has done a fantastic job broadcasting NFL games. They've grown a little bit. So if it's reasonable, I wouldn't hate going to that route either. So you'll have plenty of options there to look at. And I also think with what the Royals said out there, or maybe it was somebody else that had covered this, I'm not sure on the blackout restrictions. So when it comes to blackouts on these apps, that is something I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into, because in the tweet from Jeff Passan, it's that games will be available via cable and streaming through the FanDuel Sports Network app or Amazon. Royals were the final MLB team to choose a TV partner. And then the Royals post, which was on Twitter out there, they just announced that they had reached an agreement with Diamond Sports Network for the 2025 season. And there was a big press release. This came from Evan Drellick that states a couple different things. So if you want to go read through the full breakdown of it, it kind of states some of the extra data when it comes to it. John Sherman said, quote, "Our top priority has been and always will be reaching as many fans as possible. We want to be available to anyone who wants to watch our exciting team as the ownership group continues to invest in the progress we're making on the field." And it says the Royals ended last season with more than 40,000 streaming subscribers, with more than half watching each game for at least 90 minutes. The Royals had the biggest subscriber growth across baseball. That I actually did not know. So the Diamond CEO, David Preschlack, and we'll end with this because we're running up on time here, said, quote, "Our renewed partnership with the Royals highlights our shared commitment to connecting as many fans as possible to the team, however they choose to watch. We are confident that our evolving partnerships with Amazon and FanDuel and combined linear and digital platforms will provide fans with exceptional value and unparalleled viewing experience. This agreement covers all non-nationally televised Royals games in 2025, starting with spring training, pitchers and catchers will report on February 12th, which is 71 days away." So that's the full press release there. I'm sure a little bit more will be coming out, but that's what we got right now. Is you'll be able to watch them on the app, just now rebranded to FanDuel Sports Network. You can watch them on cable. Will be the same thing, just under a different name. And then you can also try to find it on Amazon Prime, which will be an additional package. We've talked about it a little bit throughout our last couple of episodes. But at least now we've got more clarity, and the Royals do have a TV deal, which should help out a lot of people out there. I'm sure there'll be people commenting on the blackout restrictions. I will be doing some more digging today just to know exactly what everything will be said in the press releases, and if there's anything more to come. So I'll try to keep people as updated as that as possible. But as for us, that's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jack Johnson. Thank you for making Locked On Royals your first listen today. For your second, find Locked On MLB, as Baseball Guru Sully brings a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every rumor and story throughout the offseason. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about Maikel Garcia as a trade candidate, maybe a little bit more on this new TV deal, and lead you into the winter meetings. But until then, you take it easy, Kansas City.